Tonight, this story will draw you into the quiet, piercing ache of a marriage undone by a single careless misstep. Candlelight flickered across the dining table as Mark looked at me with an expression I couldn't fully decipher. It was his 34th birthday, and I had gone to great lengths to make the evening memorable. His favorite dinner, a bottle of Merlot, and a peaceful night with our phones tucked away. Yet that look on his face, a mix of doubt and exhaustion, made the room feel heavier than the wine in my glass. "You've been distant lately, Claire," he murmured, fork frozen midair. "You come home late. You cling to your phone. You laugh at messages you don't show me. I don't want to ruin tonight over this. But I need to ask. Are you seeing someone else?" The words hung in the air like a blade poised above my neck. I laughed too sharply, too loudly. "Are you serious, Mark? Tonight of all nights?" I forced a smile, hiding the tremor in my chest. Should I just admit I ran off with a millionaire and came back for dessert? It was meant to be a joke, a shield. But when I saw his face stiffen, I realized I had hit a wound that had been raw for weeks. Slowly, Mark pushed back his chair. "That's not funny, Claire," he whispered. "Not when I asked honestly. Not when I already feel like I'm losing you." And just like that, the birthday dinner became the night he walked out. I hadn't expected him to actually leave. Mark had always been patient, almost to a fault. We had been married for 7 years, and he was the kind of man who never slammed doors or accused recklessly. But that night he grabbed his coat, his keys, and left without raising his voice. The silence that followed was deafening. First I was angry. Angry at him for leaving on his own birthday. Angry at myself for the foolish joke. Angry at the unease that had been gnawing at our marriage for months. Beneath that anger, however, lurked something far more dangerous. Fear. Because Mark wasn't wrong. 3 months earlier, a man named Dylan had joined our advertising agency. Charismatic, sharp, effortlessly amusing. He made the dull office hours feel alive again. It wasn't that Mark and I were unhappy. Our marriage had just gone quiet. Life had settled into a loop of work, bills, and occasional date nights where we were too drained to discuss anything beyond a dripping tap or the neighbor's barking dog. Dylan noticed the things Mark hadn't in a long time. A new perfume, a change in my hairstyle, the way I lingered by the coffee machine on Mondays. At first, it was harmless. Light teasing about deadlines, shared lunches, walking to the parking lot together. But then the texts came, late at night, the ones that made me smile when I should have been asleep beside my husband. I told myself it was innocent, nothing meaningful. But guilt crept through the smallest cracks, turning my phone face down, avoiding Mark's touch in bed, flinching when he asked, "Who's messaging you so late?" That night, Mark didn't come home. Called twice, no answer. By morning, his closet was half empty, a note on the counter. "I warned you because I still loved you. But last night you gave me the answer I feared." No yelling, no dramatic threats, just quiet devastation. I went to work mechanically, mind a blur, sitting across from Dylan in the conference room. He noticed my red eyes and asked if I was okay. I nodded, forcing a smile, yet the weight in my chest was suffocating. Suddenly, his attention didn't feel thrilling, it felt toxic. Mark didn't return that night or the next. A friend later told me he was staying with his brother across town. He hadn't filed anything yet, but his silence was louder than any argument we'd ever had. Days turned to weeks. We exchanged a few cold, practical texts about bills, rent, nothing personal. I stopped texting Dylan, laughing at his jokes, even checking my phone at night. None of it mattered anymore. I wasn't ready to admit that I had destroyed my marriage for a few empty thrills. But the truth stared at me every time I passed our wedding photo in the hallway. The breaking point came 2 weeks later at the grocery store. He looked thinner, weary, but his eyes were clear, clearer than mine had been in months. "Mark, wait," I called as he turned down the dairy aisle. He paused, hands on the cart, but didn't smile. "Claire, can we talk?" My voice cracked. People passed, some glanced, most ignored us, but I felt exposed. "There's nothing left to talk about," he said, voice steady but cold. "I warned you. I told you what I feared. You didn't take me seriously. It wasn't Mark. I didn't sleep with him, I blurted too loud. A child in the next aisle giggled. He didn't flinch. Maybe not, but you were willing to joke. You let someone else live in your thoughts, in your texts, in the silence between us. Do you know how humiliating that is? To be laughed at while I tried to save this marriage. I wanted to shout that it was boredom, office chatter, that he hadn't been giving me attention. But deep down I knew it was just an excuse. The truth was simple. I had crossed a line, then joked about it, expecting him to swallow his pain for a birthday dinner. Mark, please, counseling, anything? Pleaded. He shook his head slowly. I spent months trying to fix it while you entertained someone else. I won't beg for your loyalty. He left again, this time with nothing in his cart. Divorce papers arrived a month later. No screaming, no drawn-out court battle. No children, no house. Just 7 years of memories packed into boxes, signatures on paper. I signed with shaking hands. Dylan reached out after, claiming he missed our talks, regretting how far it went. Every word felt like salt on a wound I had carved myself. Eventually I blocked him. Not in anger, but because I couldn't endure reminders of what I traded for nothing. Nights were hardest, lying in a half-empty bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying moments I could have chosen differently. Putting the phone down, declining the extra coffee, listening when Mark said he felt distant, holding his hand instead of mocking his fears. Love doesn't die in one blow. It dies in neglect, in small betrayals, in careless jokes at the worst moment. Months later, I saw Mark at a friend's engagement party. He laughed with a woman I didn't know. She touched his arm as he leaned in, free and light. He caught my eye and nodded politely. No malice, only closure. Then I realized. He left not because of the joke, but because it confirmed every fear. I had disrespected the line we drew, promised loyalty, and my laugh had become the confession he needed. If I could revisit that birthday, I wouldn't buy better wine or cook fancier food. I'd put the phone away months earlier, look him in the eyes and admit the truth. I was slipping, I needed him, I wanted no one else but him. Time doesn't bend for regret. It only carves it deeper. Now, when people ask why my marriage ended, I tell them the truth.